So I don't know about you, but I think I am ready for a break from Power BI. We have already set up most of our visuals. We've set up most of our calculations. We're in good shape from a Power BI perspective. Now I want to focus on layout and design stuff. Honestly, anyone who knows me knows that I think this is the most fun part of designing a Power BI report, because this is where you're taking, data, taking numbers, taking calculations, and you're making it interesting and engaging, and you're making it something that anyone off of the street who's looking at your report is going to perk up and say, man, that looks really cool. I want to learn more about whatever this topic is, even hypothetically if the topic isn't inherently all that interesting. Like our three Florida coffee locations that we're running some half-year sales data for. It's nothing terribly exciting to me, but I feel like by the time we're done with this infographic and building our layout, this is going to be something that people want to jump into. However, most of the time when I'm doing these tutorials, I kind of walk you through how to pick out a palette, how to choose colors that are going to look good together. I have not done a whole lot of practical examples in the workplace or in the business world where you don't necessarily have as much freedom to choose your own colors, or you don't have as much creative license to pick what you think is going to look nice. You have to use branded colors. The good thing is that most companies have pretty good branded color palettes. After all, companies that are making marketing materials or making advertisements, they have to deal with the same things that we have to deal with as BI and web designers. They have to choose colors that read well. They have to choose colors that complement each other and look good when juxtaposed side by side. They have to pick colors that take accessibility into mind. They have to pick colors that are safe for people who have different kinds of color blindness or who perceive different colors differently. So they have to make a lot of very smart and creative decisions in picking their colors. So most of the time, companies may have colors that we don't inherently find extremely attractive, but they are usually colors that work decently enough in most circumstances for data visualization, or at least that's been my case. I can't say that your experience is going to perfectly align to that, but I've been fortunate so far in that everywhere I've worked, the companies have had colors that I can deal with, even if I may have picked different colors myself. So we're going to pretend that we're in that kind of a situation here, where Kraken Koffee has been kind enough to provide us with a few different examples of their logo. The top one here is kind of a dark logo. The other one is a little bit more colorful and would probably work better on like a strictly light or dark colored background. And then there's even this little guy down here that's kind of a completely different take on their logo. So we're just going to pick one of these logos to work with and incorporate into our infographic. And then they have also provided us in advance with their complete color scheme. And you can see we have all of these nice nautical names over here for 6 colors that we could just as easily have picked out of PowerPoint, but this hex code here, this 00C6BB, they're calling it Open Sea Blue. I'm sure that it has a different name somewhere else, but hey, Kraken Koffee, we're going with an ocean theme here. We've got Sunset Orange, Seafoam Green, Dead Man's Gray, Kraken Green, Deep Sea Teal. So a lot of blues and greens, but we also have this nice warm color here in this orange. So I'm already kind of thinking, as I look at the colors in front of me, I'm probably going to lean pretty heavily on these blues and oranges. There's just something about that kind of cool color, warm color contrast that really speaks to me. So I can already say that I'm probably going to use quite a bit of this blue and orange combination that you also see kind of reflected over here in their logos. So let's go ahead first and just, I'm going to try to grab this window and just kind of drag it up here to the top. Let's see, there we go. Now I can choose, where on my monitor I want to put the PowerPoint, and I'm going to choose my PowerPoint for my Power BI report for Kraken Koffee, and I'm going to put that on the right side. That way I can just sort of click over here in this big empty white space, pull up my canvas background settings, and now I'm going to go ahead and replace just 6 of these colors. I know that we have 8 here that we can choose from. I've only got 6 colors over here for Kraken Coffee. That's no problem. Even these 6 colors, we're not going to use all of them. I typically recommend using just 2 or 3 really strong colors in your Power BI report. And so in our data visuals, we're mostly going to lean pretty heavily on this blue and this orange, I think. So we've got 6 colors here. We want to replace these 8 colors. Let's go ahead and head up to our view settings. Up here in the top left, I have my themes. Let's go ahead and browse for themes and customize our current theme. Here are my 8 colors that are making up the default Power BI color palette that I can't say enough about how much I can't stand this color palette. It's way too bright for me. So we're just going to go through these first 6 colors. I'm not going to do anything with colors 7 and 8. They're fairly irrelevant to me. Let's start with just color 1. You can see that there's already a hexadecimal color code here for whatever blue this is. As I drag this around, you can see these colors updating in real time. I don't want to be bothered to try to find the exact color here that sort of aligns to this 00C6BB. It looks like it's somewhere kind of in this teal area here. But I'm just going to go ahead and hard code in the new hexadecimal code that I want. Now I'm going to go ahead and move over here to this dark blue. I'm going to replace that with EFB251, which is my orange over here. Next, let's go ahead and move over to color 3, and that's going to be our 6FEBA0 color. Kind of this really kind of minty or almost like toothpaste kind of colored green. The next one is a gray, so it's super easy. It's just 63 a couple of times. Color 5 is going to get this Kraken green, 7FCB84. And last but not least, let's grab that super deep sea teal. So it's kind of this dark teal down here that I like. And we're going to go ahead and apply these colors, and you can see up here that the lines in my forecast immediately updated. Nothing changed over here, but that's totally fine. Let's go confirm that our 6 colors came over okay. There they are in our color palette. Now we're good to go. I'm just going to go ahead and hide Power BI for now, and we're going to focus mostly on PowerPoint stuff for now that we have all of our colors. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just open up a empty PowerPoint document. Let's go ahead and just grab a blank presentation here. Going to go ahead and just hover over this. Let's go ahead and see if we can get our window up here at the top of our browser to appear again. I'm going to put my new one on the right. I'm going to grab my template colors over here on the left. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to import these 6 colors again, but this time into PowerPoint. And anyone who's watched a lot of my videos knows that by and large, I tend to use just these color palettes that are already kind of built into PowerPoint. I don't know if I've ever done a video where I actually show you how to make your own color theme in PowerPoint. So we're going to do that real quickly. We're going to look for this section up here called Variants. And if you scroll down to colors, you can see a whole bunch of different color palettes that are built right into Power BI, or PowerPoint rather. I get those two confused when I'm doing Power BI and PowerPoint side by side so many times I can't tell you. So PowerPoint, we're going to go to Variants, we're going to open up our colors and go to Customize Colors, and we have a window that appears right here that, is overall fairly similar to what we just updated in Power BI. We have a list of colors. If we expand these colors, we can see the color that is selected, and if we open up more colors, we see a place where we can hard code in our own colors and replace those. So let's go ahead and hit OK. There's our open sea blue. Let's go to more colors for our orange. And we're going to replace this with another orange, which I have an errant W in there. Now let's go to our next color. This is our seafoam green, and it's 6FEBA0. The next one is our gray, which I remember is 63, 63, 63, 63, easy stuff. Next, let's go ahead and grab our 7FCB84, our other green. And last, our dark teal. And all this is going to do, now that we have our colors in here, let's go ahead and expand our canvas again. And all this is going to do is just make it easier for us to reference the core colors that make up our palette as we start building out our infographic layout. The first thing that we are going to do with our layout in PowerPoint is we're going to need to really change the size and shape of this canvas because, again, we're not using PowerPoint to make PowerPoint slides here. We're using it as sort of a makeshift layout designer for Power BI. So we're going to need a much longer canvas for our infographic. You know, think something that is longer instead of wider like you have here. And so we're going to go ahead and go to slide size up here in our design options. And you can see I can choose from standard or widescreen, but we're going to choose custom slide size so that we can make a slide that is much longer. In fact, it's going to run well off the page and we're going to have to scroll up and down to see everything. And we're also going to have to adjust our size properties down here with the magnifier so that, you know, in case we need to go and actually see the whole thing or zoom into a specific area at a time. So I'm going to go ahead and update my height here from 7.5 to 30 inches. That should be enough. You can choose maximum if you want to. We haven't really started doing anything yet, so it's not really going to matter which one you pick. But 30 inches should work just fine here. And then the next thing that I'm going to do, and by and large, I normally recommend that people avoid putting a whole bunch of images or really busy colors or too many gradients in the background of your Power BI reports. And I definitely stand by that for a standard Power BI report. You want the star of the show to always be your data visuals. You don't want anything, even in an infographic, behind a data visual in such a way that it's going to, you know, confuse someone or make it more difficult for them to read or interpret the data visual. But that said, I'm not telling you not to have fun with your designs. I'm not telling you not to have fun with your color choices. I'm not telling you not to be playful. If we weren't playful, business intelligence report building would be ultimately a really boring and sort of unfulfilling job, at least for me. So we want to figure out ways that we can have fun with the colors in our palette while also making sure that we're telling a story and capturing insights and data visuals that are going to be meaningful to an executive from Kraken Koffee or someone else that is looking to understand this data. So the first thing that pops to my head, looking at the colors that we have, and let me go back and find my color palette up here that I just made. Let's see, there are my colors. Let's go ahead and click on that so that our colors are back. Okay, so the first thing that I see in my colors here that I think I'm going to play with is I have this kind of sunset orange, I believe that it was called, and then I have these these two teals here that sort of evoke the feeling of the ocean. And so, you know, we're called Kraken Koffee, so I'm choosing to kind of go with a more nautical theme here for my report. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on a background gradient here. And you can see that Power BI is just automatic, or PowerPoint rather, is just automatically grabbing some colors from my color palette. It looks like it's choosing the dark teal, my lighter teal, and then that gray, that 636363 color. What I'm going to do here to sort of create this sunset and aquatic theme is I'm just going to replace this gray here with my orange. And you can see immediately the effect that that has. I mean, like up here, you know, we're sort of imagining, you know, the color of the sky at sunset. And then, you know, now we're sort of in the water and here we're kind of in the depths. So I'm going to go ahead and grab, you can see the three colors here that make up my gradient. I'm going to grab this dark teal and I'm just going to pull it up a little bit. All I'm doing is I'm, you know, trying to create sort of a darker area down here that's going to contrast really well. Now, there's still a lot going on here with these colors. I wouldn't necessarily recommend just overlaying data visuals on top of these colors and calling it a day, because any color that you pick for like the bars in your bar chart or the lines, there's a chance that those colors are going to work just fine over one color, but then they may not work as well over this color or this color. You'd have to get really creative finding a color that's going to work equally as well on this sort of orange palette as it works on this sort of teal and this very, very dark teal down here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just overlay another rectangle on top of my design here, and I'm going to use rounded corners. I'm going to sort of drag this into place. I just kind of want, a very slight impression of my background color choices to sort of peek out. And then I'm just going to kind of nudge this into position so that I have, more or less the exact same, space on all sides of it. If you really want to get very technical and make sure that this thing is perfectly centered, just click on the rectangle, go up here to align, and just hit center and hit align middle. You can see it nudge just a little bit. Now I'm going to go up here and select white as my colors, and this is going to be my palette that I work with. I'm actually going to make this just a little bit. I don't have enough room down here at the bottom for me to be happy with. So let's go ahead and just realign this, align center, align middle. Okay, pretty happy with how that's looking now. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to just grab over here some, let's scroll down, and I'm going to grab a hexagon, and I'm going to make these hexagons a little bit larger. Let's try 2 and 2.2. And what I'm going to do with these hexagons is I'm going to try to figure out a creative way to sort of lay out some of the KPIs that we wrote very early on in our Power BI infographic journey. So like I've got some numbers here, like the total number of transactions, total sales for the first half of 2023. I've got my average order size, total stores, products, and then our top earners and most popular seller. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stage, just some hexagons here to sort of serve as just more clever ways of sort of staging some of those KPIs. And you can see I'm just sort of grabbing 2 of these at a time and copying and pasting them. And then I'm going to try to fit 7 of these in here. Hopefully I can fit 7 of these hexagons. Let's try distributing them horizontally. You can see I've got just a little bit of wiggle room between my boundaries and these shapes. Let's go ahead and try nudging these one more time. Whoops. Want to distribute them horizontally. I'm also trying to line up the top of this hexagon with the dead center of my top row of hexagons. But honestly, all of that's looking pretty good. Let's go ahead and also give these white borders. Let's see, I'm going to choose white shape outline. And I'm going to, let's see, thicken these up to about 4.5, maybe 6. Can I get away with 6? Okay, that's looking pretty good. You'll see that by doing white outlines around these hexagons, I end up with the illusion of having a lot more space between these hexagons. This allows me to sort of, pinch all of my my rightmost and my leftmost hexagon back in towards the center a little bit. I'm just going to drag and highlight all 7 of these hexagons again. I'm going to go back to arrange, align, and distribute horizontally again. And there we go. That's more or less the effect that I was looking for. Now that I have these, very, very quickly, because I want to be able to easily differentiate all of my hexagons from each other, let's try just grabbing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my darkest color from down here for the left and my lightest orange from up here for the far right. And then I'm going to use the gradient as I go from the bottom up to color in the rest of these. So for this one, I'm going to just grab my eyedropper and let's grab roughly here For my next one, obviously I don't want to look like I just grabbed exactly the same color, so let's go ahead and try to grab maybe here. For the next one, I'm going to grab something around this sort of greenish area. Next, I'm going to sort of grab maybe something around here. And then last but not least, there we go. So you can see that, I didn't spend too much time belaboring it. I just tried to pick 7 colors that were, kind of run from top to bottom the length of this gradient. And, I just kind of randomly picked in roughly equal intervals colors to sort of fill in my hexagons here. Now, the area of our infographic below these hexagons that we staged for our summary KPIs, this is going to be where we eventually transpose our data visuals that we spent a lot of time building in Power BI. So this is going to be where a lot of the insights are and where we sort of explain what's happening. The data is going to sort of start with these hexagons, just with some summary metrics up here. But we do have some space now at the very top that I'm going to sort of zoom in on by dragging my cursor down here in the top right corner. And above the hexagons is where we are going to stage our logo and just sort of explain to someone who's looking at this, what they're looking at. So let's go ahead and pull back up our collateral materials here. And I'm going to just grab this middle logo here. And I'm going to paste it, and you will notice that right now my colors are being thrown off because the PowerPoint collateral document does not necessarily correspond one-to-one to the new theme of colors that I brought in. So let's try, I'm just going to tell it to keep the source formatting. In other words, keep the colors as they were in the other document. And I'm just going to kind of drag that into position and put it right there. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to look and see which font is being used in my Kraken Coffee logo. And I'm going to create a new text box. So I'm just going to insert a text box. I'm going to sort of drag this over here. And let's call this this infographic that we're building 2023 halftime review, because that's ultimately what we're looking at. This data set runs January 1st through June 30th of 2023. We're just trying to report on how sales are going for our 3 new Florida locations of Kraken Coffee. So let's go ahead and choose the same font that we're using in our logo, which is right here, this ST Hupo or Hupo. And I'm just going to go ahead and blow that up. I don't want it to be as large as the Kraken Coffee logo, but I do definitely want it to, pull attention and be obvious as sort of an attention-grabbing headline. I'm even going to try sort of loosening up the text a little bit here. Now, I'm noticing that, this halftime review may not look quite as, in your face or as attention grabbing as if I just did everything in capital letters. I want this thing to be as readable and as easy to grasp as possible. That looks pretty good to me. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to head up here to my shape format settings and take a visit over here to my text options. And I'm just going to go with... let's see what our outline looks like if we just pick one of our teals. Now I'm going to fill the text with white. That doesn't look half bad to me, but let's see if we can give it even a little bit more personality. I'm going to go over here to my text options. I'm going to expand my text outline options, and let's see what this looks like with a gradient. You can see that right now it's kind of hard to read. I've got a very light teal down here, and then everything kind of fades to white up here. By default, PowerPoint is assigning this 4 gradient stops. I definitely don't need 4. I'm just going to click on 2 of these gradients and delete them. And now let's see what this looks like if I go with teal for the bottom and orange for the top. It's much better. It's much easier to read. It's still a little bit light. Let's try increasing the stroke width of our text. I think 2's looking pretty good. I'm even going to try increasing the font again just a little bit. Let's see how it looks at 40. There we go. Now, one thing that I'm noticing is that, if I go with normal, that's not looking too bad. If I go with loose, that kind of runs outside of my boundary over here. So let's try going to more spacing here. And let's click on condensed. Let's see what that does. Okay, no problem. Let's go back to loose. Let's go to more spacing again. And let's just drop this spacing down a little bit here. I'm going to change my spacing to, let's try 1.5. Okay. Obviously, anyone who knows me knows that I like to manage just about every single pixel in the design. If you're watching me do this with expanding and condensing the spacing between the individual characters, and you're thinking, Sean, you're going way overboard, nobody cares about this crap, chances are you're totally right. So just do what feels right for you. I'm not going to be offended if you're just like, Sean, I was pretty happy with the normal spacing and the loose spacing. You lost me when you started adjusting the spacing between the characters. Don't worry about it. Again, to each their own. Now I'm going to go ahead and grab, let's go ahead and grab another text box over here. And for this text box, I'm just going to, sort of paste in some descriptive text, just sort of explaining, why should somebody even, care about this visual that we're putting together here. So I had already written this text. I'm just going to go ahead and kind of drag it into place up here. That looks pretty good. Honestly, I'm just really focused on sort of getting it centered, which I had it a moment ago. There we go. Now I'm going to go through and let's try for our text. I want to use just kind of a very dark gray. I typically don't recommend that you go, with the darkest black that you can get, just because, those really dark colors on a white background are really going to pull someone's attention. As humans, we're drawn to contrast. If we see something, that is the darkest thing on a light background, that tends to be where our eyes focus first. The next thing that I'm going to do is let's just go ahead and adjust our line spacing options, and I'm just going to tighten up the spacing between these lines. In other words, the space between line 1, line 2, and line 3. Let's go up here again. I'm going to drop this down to 21. That looks pretty good. Still just kind of making sure that this is perfectly centered as much as we can get it. Let's go ahead and align it to the center. I wasn't off by much. We've got just a little bit of room here. I'm going to drop my 7 hexagons down just a little bit. And now let's start just giving all of these hexagons titles for the measures that are going to go here. We could do this in Power BI, but since we're building an infographic here, I'm just going to add these titles directly in my layout. So if you'll remember, the KPI cards or the measures that we're going to add here are for our total transactions or purchases, total sales, average order size, the number of new stores, the number of new menu items or products, and then which product is our top earner and which one is our most popular seller. So for this first one here, I'm just going to write total number of purchases. Let's see if we can get this to work. I like my bond shrift condensed font for no real reason other than just it has kind of the same effect to it that is why I like the DIN font so much in Power BI. It's just a very clean, crisp, highly readable font. There's nothing fancy to it, but it's easy to read from a fair distance. I'm going to go ahead and also drop my spacing down to 20. So that I don't have a lot of space between the top line and the bottom line. Whoops. And for all of these titles, I'm going to use the same color that I have in my KPI card. But first, let's go ahead and label all of these. Let's go ahead and call the next one total sales. And you know what? As I'm doing this, I'm already thinking, really, I want to capitalize all of these. even going to try bolding them. For now, I'm not going to bold them. But I do want to capitalize everything. This is going to be average order size. The next one is going to be number of new stores. After that, I have total number of menu items. And then let's call this one bestseller dollars. And we'll call the other one bestseller quantity. And you'll notice that as I'm moving these, I'm trying to get my red grid lines perfectly aligned so that all 4 of my labels up here are perfectly aligned. And I think they are, but let's just go ahead and make sure by aligning middle. Looks good to me. Do the same thing down here. Make sure that these are aligned middle. Looks good. Now let's go ahead and just highlight each of these. I'm going to go to my text fill options, or if you want to, you can just grab the same thing over here. Let's go to my eyedropper, and I'm just going to grab the same color that's being used there. I'm going to try one more time on bolding. Don't know if I really have a preference one way or the other. So for now, we can always come back and bold this later. For now, I'm thinking I might bold it later, but we're just going to leave it as is. So we're just going to go through each of these text boxes, and we're going to grab the eyedropper and make sure that all of our colors match. The one thing that we want to be mindful of as we're doing this is, we don't just want to take it at face value that all of these fonts are immediately easy to read. One trick that I do is, like, let's say this bestseller text is a little bit light and we're thinking, well, somebody might have a little bit of trouble reading this. Just click on it. Let's go up here to our font colors. Let's go to more colors. And you'll see there is a triangle here pointing to this gradient that is showing us where this yellow falls. If we just click down here slightly below the arrow, we can actually pick a darker yellow. And be honest, do you notice any difference between this darker yellow and the one that we originally picked up here? Chances are you don't. Let's go ahead and do that just one more time in case you're not following what I'm saying. Let's pick a slightly darker version of this sort of pea soup green here that, it kind of looks like the vomit from The Exorcist. Not the most attractive green that I could have picked, but hey, I think it still works in context. Let's go ahead and go up here to our color that makes up the font color here. Let's drop down more colors. And this arrow here is pointing at the green that we are using. It's the same green that's being used in the hexagon. We're going to darken this color up just a little bit by going down here just a little bit below the arrow in the gradient and picking a slightly darker green. You can see the darker green up here and our original green here. I'm just going to hit OK. And now, once again, we're using a darker green for our text color than the green that we have here. But I'm telling you, no one is going to notice that difference. So, okay, we're now in pretty good shape with the top part of our visual. The next thing that we want to do is I'm going to start just sort of carving out some sections from this area down here, and just to use for actually putting our data visuals. And I'm also going to show you some additional tricks along the way.